My Gavanan Melonin, and well met indeed. I am Archir Galadirthan, the head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer. Welcome back to Divide and Conquer, the submod for Third Age Total War, with the faction overview for many people's favourite faction, the Kingdom of Gondor. That's a somewhat incorrect name at the year 2980 of the Third Age, as we're currently run and ruled by the Steward of Gondor. And we aren't technically a kingdom. Can you be a kingdom without a king? I don't think you can. Anyway, we are Gondor. Here we are. So, let's start as we always do. The size of your domain and the initial starting army. Well, fun little tidbit for you is the message, I just got rid of it, but I should have kept it, is that at turn 2 of the entire game, Gondor has the distinction of having the largest number of provinces in the entire world as we know it. The map of Arda, the map of Middle-earth. You also, another little extra tidbit as playing as Gondor, if I can get it back up. Oh no, it's because it's gone now. You are listed as the overall most powerful nation at the start of the game. So there's some fun extras. And of course, all of this means that your starting domain is massive. You start with Henethanoon, the only region on the eastern bank of the Anduin, and then you have everything that you would expect Gondor to have, perhaps except for Cirith Yor and Tharagrondust, the westernmost regions in the land that is conventionally seen as Gondor. Those regions are, of course, rebel. You also do not own Dol Amroth, because, of course, Dol Amroth is their own faction. Your starting army is very large, but in an attempt to tone it down a bit, the garrisons of most towns are really quite small, as you can see there, with very, very few troops. But you've got a large number of bodyguards, you've got a large number of variation in the bodyguards' actual units as well, which is quite good. So leader capital uniques. Well, given the size of your large nation, you might think that the capital is somewhere in the middle, but of course, following true to law, wherever possible, Minas Tirith, City of Kings, Tower of Guard, is actually your capital. And there it is, with Steward Denethor. He should be called Steward Denethor II. But there he is as your faction leader. Now, going through the custom bodyguards will take a while because there are a few. Steward Denethor comes with just the general's bodyguard. This is a key point. Hurin, people like Hurin, also Calamir, general's bodyguard, Bordir, general's bodyguard. But as we go out into the world, we start to find new people, such as Faramir, for example, in Henethanoon, who has Ithilien Rangers, as you might expect. You will also note in this fort just south of here is perhaps your more favoured son, Captain General Boromir, your faction heir. And he comes with Wardens of the White Tower, a very good infantry unit. In Karasast, Forlong the Respected, also known as Forlong the Fat, comes with Lasarnak Axeman, as you might expect. As we continue around, Orodreth of Pelagia, or Guy de Lusignan, comes with Lebenin Marines. So there's his bodyguard. In Fanrond it's normal, in Brethil it's normal, in Tarnost it is quite cool, because Yorthon comes with Royal Swan Guard. He's one of only 2 mounted bodyguards for Gondor in the base mod. Of course, the cavalry mod, submod, has not been released yet by us because I haven't bothered to do it yet. Anyway, Royal Swan Guard are the bodyguard for Yorthor, which is, of course, the Dol Amroth bodyguard, so that's cool. Ethering is the standard. Kalembel, Angbor the Fearless, one of the best generals from the stories in the books, has Lamadon Clansman. So another unique unit there. In Serond, we find Herr Lewin, who is perhaps the most useful of all of your generals, because he comes with Pinnith Gelin cavalry. And they're quite effective, especially in the early game. They lose some strength in the late game, but early doors, they're knocking people down, no worries. Anfalas pikemen are the bodyguard for Golazgil, for this is the region of Anfalas, where you might expect them to come. And then in Anulond, we also have, I believe, Anfalas pikemen, yes. You also will have noted as we went through those that quite a few of them have custom models. So they're not all identical Gondorian generals. A lot of them have the models that represent the unit that they actually have, which is quite cool. And then, of course, Boromir looked like Boromir, Faramir looks like Faramir, and Denethor looks like Denethor. So So those are all your generals and all your bodyguards and whatnot. Quite a lot. Your diplomat, of course, comes from Minas Tirith, from, I believe, the Tower of Icthelion. Yes, there he is. So that's where you'll be getting your diplomats from. So a lot of focus on the east for Gondor, not actually all that much on the west. But then when we come to Rebel expansion, the tables somewhat turn, because on the western edge you do have Thara-Grondos, you have Cirithior, and you have Gund, which you might be able to get before Isengard or Enedwaith. Unlikely, but possible. On the eastern edge, you can take eastern Osgiliath, and you can take Gelebrin in the lands of the Dagorlad. And then you've run out of rebels here. Oh no, sorry, and Ostithiel. So there's a few options east and west. South, you can beat Dol Amroth if you wish to places like Barad-Han or Tir Thraed, but then you're going to be fighting on a lot of fronts, and that's very not recommended. Which is terrible English, but there we are. Your neighbours then in diplomacy, of course, you are neighboured to a lot of people. From the west through to the east, going clockwise, we have Enedwaith, Isengard, Rohan, Dol Guldur almost, you're only one region away from them. Mordor can, of course, border you right up on Horthanur, and Dol Amroth to the south. Closing in, though, will be the forces of the Ardanaim, who have retaken Umbar in the name of Numenor, the name of the king's men, and they will soon be pressing through Gobel Mirlond and knocking on the doors of the mouths of the Anduin. And, of course, Harad will also probably make their way up through Amun-Ithel, Tir Thraed, and into Tir Thoros. So they'll be there soon. And of these peoples, you are only allied to Rohan and Dol Amroth, who I believe you actually... No, taken away. You used to have a protectorate over them, but no longer. You're now just allies with them. And allied, of course, to Rohan. And you are at war with Mordor, you're at war with Harad, you're at war with the Ardanaim, and you're at war with Khand. Which means you're at war with everyone who would be enemies around you to the east and south. But the west, you do have a reprieve. Enedwaith are not set at war with you at the start, neither are Isengard, but the chances of them going to war with you are quite high. So you will find your forces quite stretched, if that situation arises. So economy, buildings and blacksmith. Well, Gondor have no restrictions whatsoever, and they have level 5 smithing with Numenorian plate. So start with partial leather, goes to full leather, chainmail, partial plate, and Numenorian plate. There could be full plate, really, couldn't it? But so you get the full smithing. In terms of guilds, you get the Warriors Guild, Armsmen's Guild, Royal Armsmen's Guild, and the Order of Boromir I, which name actually is not technically right, because at this point there isn't a Boromir II, because Boromir is never steward. So, and Boromir isn't Boromir III, he's Boromir II. But, so it should just be called Order of Boromir, really. But the reason I added the first is because if we had just called it the Order of Boromir, people would assume it is about Boromir who is alive in the Third Age. Or who is alive now, sorry. Whereas it's about the first Boromir, who is said to be the only human that the Witch King ever feared. Which is actually written there. I noticed that. Anyway, it gives you a melee weapon bonus, morale bonus to troops, experience bonus for archers, and experience bonus to troops trained in the region that gets it. You're one of only a few nations that actually has access to the third tier of the Warriors Guild, because do note a lot of nations get the Warriors Guild. So as usual, I'm here to warn you, the AI will almost certainly beat you to this. But you can find it. So if you find the region that the third tier is built in, you can, when you claim that region, it will stay constructed and you then get the benefits of it. So you might be able to find it somewhere. You also get the Merchants Guild, which just gives increase to tradable goods. It's a very basic guild, unchanged entirely from the base game, really, except merchants don't exist. The economy-wise, Gondor have a very easy time with economy because you've got so many regions and you have no restrictions. So money will be coming in quite nicely. A lot of regions have a lot of resources that you can trade well with. So it's quite easy to make money as Gondor. But your forces, your army size will be quite large and your money will be taken up quite quickly with defending from all sides. Other little extra buildings that Gondor gets, you may have noticed the fiefdom barracks here in Minas Tirith. Well, that obviously gives you all of the fiefdom units. They are available in the regions that you would expect them to be available in, from the barracks of those regions. But you can then also build the extra fiefdom barracks in Minas Tirith and Dol Amroth if you ever take it. And from those two locations you can build the building and get these troops. There is a second tier of the building. No, sorry. I think there is. I'm fairly certain there's a second tier of the building. I didn't check. If there is, there is. If there isn't, there isn't. But anyway, your fiefdom units come from there in Minas Tirith only. Of course, it's not really a script or a building feature, but Western and Eastern Osgiliath can be upgraded from game start. So all you need to get Western Osgiliath to upgrade is 4,000 people. And the highest tier of the Masons Guild. So no longer do you need to upgrade one to be able to upgrade the other. And it's been that way in DaC for a while, but some people still question it. But so you can upgrade Western Osgiliath without ever owning Eastern, and likewise the other way around. And of course, when it upgrades, the battle map changes, and there are various bonuses. Also, the barracks unit, or sorry, it's this way, isn't it? The guards of Osgiliath do not require that the city be upgraded before you can train them. So as long as you've gone past the barracks event and you've built the army barracks, then you can upgrade the guards of Osgiliath. Or you can train them, sorry. You don't need to rebuild the city in order to recruit them. You'll also see from the Tharbad Bridge feature that's listed there, because we're on the city side and this is a castle, so that's why it's shown there. Oh no, it's shown there because that's the only way to get it available. Anyway, sorry, from the Tharbad Bridge you'll note that if you take Royal or Tharbad, then you can also upgrade here and you can rebuild the bridge in Tharbad. That's something that Gondor has the ability to do. Furthermore, Gondor can upgrade Anuminas and Gondor can upgrade Dead Man's Dyke. That's incorrect. Anuminas doesn't upgrade, but Dead Man's Dyke does, and Gondor are one of the only 4 nations that can actually upgrade it. So if you ever make your way north, you'll be able to rebuild that too, which is cool. I think that's pretty much it for unique buildings in and around Gondor. Do note that Henethanoon, the province of Henethanoon in version 2.2, cannot build roads. So that is not a bug, it is a feature. So you just can't build roads, although you can in whatever the next version will be called. But I think that is it, building-wise. So then we go on to scripts. Gondor doesn't have any scripts, actually. The faction is totally script-less. Of course, if you want to get garrison troops, they come from the armory, which is the tall tower-like building in your building overview. The second tier of the garrison quarters is the tower with an extra building next to it. And this will give you the garrison troops. But other than that, there are no Gondorian scripts at all. There is no Aragorn returning script. There is no extra special effect of the ring for Gondor. There is no union script with Dol Amroth. There is no unit sharing script with Dol Amroth. Save for, of course, if you take Dol Amroth's lands. If you want to attack them to do that, you can. But otherwise, if you reclaim them from an enemy, you can train Amrothian forces in these regions alone. So it gives you a little bit of variety, but there's no actual script that deals with that. That's all just done with game coding. Programming, I don't know what the other name really is. We always call it coding, but I don't really think that's correct. So major map changes for version 2.2. Caer Andros returns to being a custom battle map that actually works this time. And the right-hand side is now just a river and not the ocean, which fixed the problems of before. And I think that really is about it. Gondor has remained heavily unchanged. Oh no, of course. Erech was taken away and a fort was put in its place, where Duinhir now resides with his Blackroot Vale archers, who is another person I didn't show you in the generals. But there's Duinhir and 2 Blackroot Vale archers. And Erech as a town has gone. Kalembel and Ethring. Kalembel was moved from the bridge there over to the western side over here. And this region of Lamadon was extended up into this area, which was Erech. Same with the Ringlow Vale taking up some of its land as well. And I think that's it in terms of provinces. Oh, well, of course, Harad has... This area is now 4 provinces instead of 1. So that's a big change. And the Harnan is now saleable, which it wasn't in version 1.5 or 1.2, whatever the last version was. So tips and difficulty. The campaign is relatively straightforward if you rush Mordor. We've put a lot of scripts in place to try and stop that, but it is still very much possible if you cheese the game to its absolute extent. Mordor will fall very quickly. If you can take the Morannon, Minas Morgul, Cirith Ungol and Barad-dûr, Mordor is basically completely out of the game, no matter how quickly you do that. They lose so much recruitment potential that you really nullify them. So that's something if you really are looking for a quick victory. Otherwise, if you go into an extended battle against Gondor and Cand, who will be knocking on Ostithil very quickly, and then Ened Wyth decide to attack you, it can be a very challenging campaign. If Isengard also go to war with you, it can be a nigh on impossible campaign, and a very tricky one indeed. But again, like many campaigns, it's as hard and easy often as you wish to make it. Rushing Mordor is a viable tactic, but has been made much harder in version 2.2. But it still is an option for you. But if all 4 of them attack you, it's very tricky. So it's up to you, really, because Ened Wyth and Isengard can be quite easily held at bay and placated with diplomacy. You can rush for an alliance with Ened Wyth, for example, and you could even do the same with Isengard before they go to war with Rohan. Now, you could even choose to ally with Isengard over Rohan. The choice is yours. So it's up to you how difficult or how hard it is going to be. I don't really think there's anything else to say about Gondor, actually, which is good, because the battle map side, which we are about to jump to, is going to be bloody lengthy, if you'll pardon my French. So I will see you over there. Welcome, then, to the first half of the battle map overview. Now, Gondor's roster is so large, you cannot even select every unit on one custom battle. They are, I think, the only faction other than Dorwinion who has this feature. So what I'm going to do is do all of the infantry and show you the trebs here, and then the second half I will show you the archers and the cavalry, with one of each of these melee units left here to show you which tiers they're at. We'll also take this opportunity in this half of the battle overview to show you the upgraded armour of the units. Because people get such a hard-on, if you'll pardon the crude term, for Gondor's armour, and yet also people don't realise how blacksmithing in Medieval 2 works, and so they constantly moan at us as, why haven't you put the armour in from the movies? It's so iconic! What are you doing, you stupid fools? Because they all sound exactly like that, of course. But anyway, let's start with their infantry then. Also, remember that most of their melee forces, as we go through, are actually AOR, so their army, when you look at it from a purely train everywhere outlook, is very small. But the first unit that you will often have in your army are Gondor militia. Now remember as well, just before we go into Gondor, that this is very much the faction that every other nation is based off of. So if you're thinking of who is the vanilla faction really, it's Gondor. So when we're comparing any other unit, these are the ones we always tend to take as a base. So Gondor militia are your militia. This is your first tier unit. You do not get a trash tier. Gondor, like many nations, only really orcs get trash tiers, to be honest. Orcs and wildmen. Everyone else starts off at tier 1 and not trash. And for good reason. Their attack is 6, their charge is 3, and their defense is 10, which is solid for your first unit. That is a dependable unit right from the get-go. Average morale and average morale response aren't amazing, but when you consider the orcs have poor or low, average is much better. And it goes poor, low, average, good, very good, excellent. So they're doing okay. If they're only 615 gold coins as well, that's not too shabby. The other unit that you can get everywhere in the entire of Group 1, the entire militia tier, are the Territorial Guardsmen. Gondor Militia! Gondor Militia! And I think they look really cool. Simplicity is best, in my opinion. I like models that have very little going on, and everything is just crisp and nicely detailed. And the Gondor Territorial Guardsmen have that, and they look even cooler when you upgrade them, as we'll see in a moment. But they are slightly more defensive than the militia. So their attack is lower, their charge is lower, and their defense is more, as you can see, which is very common in units of this type. They used to be larger in size, but their soldier numbers were brought down to match the militia. Stat-wise, they're identical in terms of morale and response, average, with a bonus against mounts. Gondorian units get a bonus fighting in the grasslands. They don't get any, they're not bothered about forests, but they don't like fighting in deserts or snow. And for those of you interested, Gondor is said to have an Italian or Mediterranean climate. And so, of course, and some people would be used to fighting in the snow who lives in the mountains. Others would, of course, never really ever have snow, and it would be bloody warm most of the year. So Gondor get a negative effect fighting in the snow as a whole, because not many people actually live in the mountains, and most people live on the coasts. But then we come to the AOR. So we'll start from the left and work right. I think Lebanon Marines come from Lebanon, which is Pelagia predominantly, and possibly Fanwilond as well. They are a javelin unit. They, of course, used to be Lebanon Guard and Lebanon Marines, but we merged the two units into one and kept the Marine look because I preferred it. So this is the look we kept. Also because this unit was slightly more usable than the Marines, and the Marines were basically just a Gondor militia unit that threw a javelin. But the Guard, as they were, and Marines as they are a better version of the Territorial Guardsmen with a javelin. The AOR units work very much on the rule that they are based off of a specific unit, in this case, of course, Territorial Guardsmen, and then they are improved. They are almost always a better choice than the mainstream unit. And that applies for almost every faction. Because, of course, they're restricted. You can't get as many of them, so they can be better because it doesn't matter. So, they have a 5 attack where the Guardsmen have a 3. They have a 3 charge, where the Guardsmen have a 2. They have a 7 missile damage javelin, and they can throw their javelin 3 times. Or they get 3 javelins, I should say. 55 meter range, average accuracy. The defense is 14, 2 better than the Guardsmen, and they cost about 200 coins more for the privilege. Most of that being made up because of the fact that they can throw a javelin. They get a bonus against mounts and beasts with both weapons because they're a spear unit when they've finished with the javelin. I should state, actually, that they come from any southern Anduin region. As I read that, I'm reminded of where they're available. So that includes Fanwilond, Pelagia, I think as far north as Ostithil. Maybe not. Certainly Horthoner, Tirithoros, and Barad-Han. So the 5 regions that border the southern end of the Anduin River, the Lebanon Marines come from. So they are normally the most common AOR unit you will see. You also get Anfalas Pikemen. They should only come out of the region of Anfalas, and possibly Andrast as well, Tharagrondost. And they're pikemen, as you might expect. They are also, actually, fun fact, one of only 2 Gondorian pike units in the game now. Gondor used to have a mainstream pike unit, but it was taken away. Anfalas pikes and Osgiliath pikes, or Guards of Osgiliath, are the only pikes now. Their attack is 3, but of course, factor in the animation, gives you about a 9, really, but it takes a long time for that to pay off. Their defense is 8, which is pretty good for a pike unit, actually, to be honest. Pike units often have about 5 or 6. That's a common number, so anything above that is relatively good. They can, of course, form a pike wall. Oh, Anfalas or Andras, I was right, yeah. Average morale response, because, again, they're only militia. Bonus against mounts. They're very good as well. You should always train those where possible, because pikes are worth their weight in gold. Next up, the Horondor Mercs. Now, this unit, coolly, I think, as you heard, sounds like Haradrim. They don't have the Gondorian accent, which is cool, because they come from the land which is very much in dispute, the disputed lands, as they are actually often known, of southern Gondor, or Horondor, as it is known, which literally just means southern Gondor merged together. These guys are very good because they have attack of 7 and a charge of 5 with an AP bonus. So they're effective against armour. Their recruitment cost varies because they are actual mercs as well. So Gondor can train them from Horondor, but you can also train them as mercs in those regions. And Horondor is the 4 regions that I hovered over and said, this one region used to be 4 regions. That's Horondor. And so that is where they come from. South of the Anduin River, but north of the capital of Harad. Average morale again, average morale response, but this time a defense of 15. So they're arguably one of your best trash units. A very, very good unit. If my memory serves, I think they're on par with the Lebanon Marines in terms of cost. I think they're around 800, but I could be wrong. And finally, rounding out your militia are the Lamondon clansmen, who, as you will see, can hide anywhere, giving you a little bit of an ambush aspect. They are also effective against armour with a 6 attack. They also have a shield, which gives them a nice boost, but the Horondor mercs still have a higher defence owing to better armour and a better defence skill. Lamondon clansmen, not as good on the armour, not as good on the defence skill. Small bonus with a shield. They have a good morale and an average morale response. And they come from Ethring or Kalembel, and they don't get any bonuses to cavalry. So they are much better versions of Gondor militia. So where the militia have a 10 defense, they have a 13. Their attack is the same, but this one is armor piercing and has a higher charge. So they're not dedicated strike infantry like the Horondor mercs are, given like the mercs are best flanking or hitting the rear, but they are good at really whatever they do, and the fact that they can ambush is quite a nice little extra. So that's your militia tier. Then we come to tier number 1, or sorry, tier 2 as we like to call it actually. Now again, the barracks event approximation is here, but certain units may come before or after, it may change, but in terms of stats, this is how they're all broken up. And the first 2 units that you're going to get are train everywhere. They are Gondor Infantry, who have the voice of Battle of Middle-earth, and Gondor Spearmen, who are the same as well. And again, this works like the Militia and Territorial Guardsmen. They're better versions of them. So they have a 6 attack, the Spearmen, and a defense of 21, which is obviously much better than Territorial Guardsmen. Pretty much double across the board. 900 cost, so you're getting double the stats for just under double the cost, which is quite good. These gentlemen have good morale response, bonus against mounts. The infantry version has a lower defense at 19, but a higher attack at 8, but they have the same charge. The infantry as well, the armor is 9, and the spearmen, the armor is 9. So do watch out for armor piercing, because it will be much better against you. Also note they have quite a high defense skill actually as well, so their arrows may do more against them than you think, but then the shield comes into play in arrow fire as well, and so actually they're pretty good all-round units. A very dependable tier 1. And they are supported by my personally favourite Gondorian unit, the Axemen of Lasarnak, who look so good. And they look excellent when they're upgraded, but I didn't add I'll add the upgraded ones in the second half to show you. They have an attack of 8. Again, they're effective against armor, and they frighten nearby enemy infantry. So 2 good strike infantry traits. They have both of them. It's common for strike infantry to give fear, as well as be armor piercing. Or those traits are commonly associated with strike infantry, but not all of them have both. But the Axemen do. They come from Lasarnak, which is the main region of Karasast, and the region to its left, Brethil, as well. Good morale response. So not very good. So we're not. Their morale isn't amazing. Gondor aren't amazing, but they are good. 19 defense and 13 of that is made up by armor. So really do watch out for other armor-piercing units, because they will do very, very well against you. They cost 1,085 though. So the first unit to break over that 1,000 gold mark. So then we break up into your elite. So tier 1, tier 2, elite, and there are no uber elites for Gondor, sadly, only elites. Remember, just in case someone's joined halfway through, I'm going to show you the archers and the cavalry in a moment. So your elites, the only one of all of these 5 units that can be trained anywhere are the Citadel Guard, who even handily tell you that they're the elite forces of Gondor. How nice of them. And they are spearmen, available everywhere. A 9 attack, which is very good. 4 charge, which is a bit subpar. They're better on the defense. But a 29 total defense made up of 15 in armor. So again, watch out for armor piercing, but a solid defense with very good morale response, and bonus against mounts. They're just really good spearmen. They are very good spearmen. And a 9 attack gives them a solid charge, a solid offensive feature. But note, of course, their charge is relatively low, so you won't get much out of charging the enemy, but they'll do well in the prolonged melee. And an alternative to them, or a better version of those who represent Gondor's heritage, are the Minas Ithil Guardians. And my second favourite unit after the Lasarnak Axemen in terms of visuals. I really like these guys. They are, of course, only available from Minas Morgul or Minas Ithil, if you rename it. And also, I believe we may have extended them to Cirith Ungol, but I could be lying. I think they may still only be Minas Ithil, actually. Now, this unit is really very good. So, as I say, they're just Citadel Guard, but better. So they have 2 extra attack, 1 extra charge, and 2 more in the defense, being 1 more in armor and 1 more on the shield. The Minas Ithil Guardians have very good morale, and it's locked, so they will not run away unless you tell them to. So that's a nice little bonus. But they are, as I say, just much better Citadel Guard, and they cost an extra 125 gold coins. But they only come from 1 location, as I say. Actually, I do think it is only Minas Morgul or Minas Ithil. So they only come from 1 location. But again, they're better than the Citadel Guard, so get them where possible. Next up are one of the most iconic units, the Fountain Guard. These also have an upgraded look, which I will show you in the second half of the video because they're the only one in this roster that does. And the upgraded one is Taro M's version, and the normal one is the vanilla Third Age Total War Teams version, which is a bit more blocky. Taro M's gives them a bit more of a waistline. But they're very good pikemen. 7 attack and a 22 defense. That's incredibly good. They will frequently get a lot of kills because they survive for so long that they can just stop almost anything. Again, they have locked morale, so they won't run unless you tell them to, and their morale response is good. So a really good pike unit. And there's 114 of them, which is quite nice. Elite Elven units tend to be a bit lower. Their counterpart coming from the... both of these only come from Minas Tirith, of course. And the second one being the Wardens of the White Tower. Another solid unit. This time a better version of Gondor Infantry. With an 11 attack instead of 8. 4 charge instead of 3. And a 29 instead of 19 defense. Again, largely made up from defense, from armor rather than defense. Only from Minas Tirith, again locked morale. They're just good swordmen. There's nothing else to say about these 3 or these 4 units really, other than these are good spearmen, these are even better spearmen, these are excellent pikemen, and these are excellent swordmen. And then rounding out the roster, only coming from the 2 Osgiliaths are the guards of Osgiliath, who are excellent pikemen. So again, these are pikes, so the same as the Fountain Guard. And these gentlemen, though, are just a little better again. So, Fountain Guard have a 7 attack with a 5 charge. Guards always go to have a 7 attack with a 6 charge. And I've said something wrong already because these are actually halberdiers, not pikes. So do keep watch for that. They don't have the pikes uber effectiveness, but they do have armor piercing. Their defense is 23, so pretty similar. So essentially what you have here is an excellent pike unit and an excellent halberdier unit to differentiate them a bit more. Hence the actual halberdier that they're wielding. I should have not spotted that. They only come from Western and Eastern Osgiliath. It says they require a rebuilt Osgiliath, and I should reword that because it is not true. They do not need the rebuilt Osgiliath. They come from the 3rd tier barracks regardless of whether or not you've rebuilt it. So I'll reword that. They don't have a locked morale though, and their morale is actually only good. So they can break easier than your other elite units. Finally then, your bodyguard with the coolest shield in the game. The Gondor bodyguard are now spearmen, of course. They're just good spearmen. 10 attack, 5 charge, 32 defense. They're based on Citadel Guard and then boosted. If you want to know how we do all bodyguards, we basically take an elite unit, we copy its stats, and then we boost them a bit. That's every bodyguard. And in this case, they're Citadel Guard with a bit more pep. So 1 extra attack, 1 extra charge, and 3 extra defense. But of course, there's less of them. They normally have better morale as well, although obviously it only shows morale as very good or good. That is actually a number scale, and the bodyguards have a slightly higher morale than the Citadel Guard, but only barely. Skilled against mounts. Secondary attack of 11, because that hasn't been edited either. That is not true, because they're no longer cavalry, so ignore that. But they do get a bonus against mounts, because they are spearmen. And lastly, it's only to show you, I'm not really going to show you the stats. I mean, you can look at them, but I'm not going to talk through them. They're just siege. But it's just to show you that Gondor do get the trebuchet, of course. And there it is in all its glory, firing a 90-kilogram projectile over 300 meters with the glory of a counterweight. And there's the trebuchet. And then, so some infantry upgrades for you to satiate your burning desires. The Gondor infantry, spearmen, and archers, as we'll see in the other half, have 2 upgrades. So let's get the infantry up here. Gondor infantry start wearing the tabards that 3rd Age Total War created. They then upgrade to have the armour again that 3rd Age Total War created. And then the 3rd tier is Taro M's vastly, and I apologise to anyone who may have created these if they are listening, I doubt it, but Taro M's vastly superior model there. So the first 2 tiers are an homage to the mod that we are based on, because it just seemed wrong to rip out the guts of that mod. And someone slaved over this unit, and I think it is high quality. So we kept them in. And indeed, the first upgrade is also from the base mod, but then Taro M's full plate comes in there. The Lebanon Marines also get a little upgrade. If we chuck in the older one first, There's the base one, which just has the tabards, and then they upgrade to get chainmail and these Roman-esque pauldrons that they've got, which I think are so cool. But chainmail otherwise. So basically, they jump to chainmail with pauldrons. And finally, I also wanted to show you the Territorial Guardsmen, for they have an upgrade too. The Militia also upgrade, but their upgrade doesn't look all that. Amphalas Pikemen, Lamberton Clansmen don't have significant upgrades, if at all. Same with Rondor Mercs. But that's what the Territorial Guardsmen start as, and then they upgrade to have full Gondorian tabards with chainmail on them as well. So they upgrade to just solid main military tier kind of units, really. So very good indeed. Now I'll jump to the second half of the battle map, where we'll see the cavalry and archer options, and I will show you upgraded militia, upgraded Lasarnak Axemen, and upgraded Fountain Guard. So do stay tuned. Welcome then to the third and final part of the Gondor overview, with the archer and cavalry overviews. But before we deal with the archers and cavalry, I will just break down the tiers again and show you the upgrades for those earlier ones. So the first tier again will be militia, and starting off with Gondor militia. And on the left is what they look like unupgraded, and the right is their fully upgraded iteration. As you can see, getting chainmail, and a few of them get slightly fancier tabards as well. So that's the militia upgrade. And then we have Lasarnak Axemen coming in at the tier 2. And on the right-hand side there is their awesome upgrade, bearing the armour that's very common in Gondor, but with axes rather than the tree. They look really good. I really like them. So on the left, the unupgraded version. On the right, the upgraded. Just looking incredible. And look at the axe as well. Just everything about them is just glorious. And finally, the Fountain Guard in the elite tier. On the left is the unupgraded version, and on the right is the fully upgraded version. And as you can see, they take quite a jump. Taro M's units are, I think, a significant improvement, but it would be a waste not to use the option to upgrade them. So there's the visual changes there. They also go from having kind of purpley capes to having just black capes. More texture on the helmets, more texture on the feathers, different armour. They've got black overcoats, and they just look cool. So those are the tiers, and we'll start with the archers. So the unit that you can get everywhere are Gondor Archer Militia, who have a 3 melee attack, which isn't that great, but a defense of 9, which is good. And a 3 missile attack as well for an entry-level unit is pretty good, with average morale response. They only have 18 missiles, 150 meters, and low human accuracy. So they're more accurate than orcs at all tiers, but they're less accurate than all elven tiers. Now, the Blackroot Vale Archer is a better version of the Archer Militia. So where the Archer Militia is 3-3-2, the Blackroot Vales are 6-4-4. So their melee is considerably better with a two-handed sword. Missile only 1 better, and their charge also is double that of the archers below. So they are much better in melee than the Archer Militia, but their actual missile stat is only 1 better. However, they do have more missiles, and their range is 30 meters more, and their accuracy is average. So they are the completely better option in every aspect, but they do cost more for that privilege. I think they're about 700. And those are the Blackroot Vale Archers. They only come from... Yes, it says Erek, that's wrong. Kalembel, I believe, and... Blackroot Vale, Kalembel, and the one on the other side, Ethering. The same places as Lamedon, basically, just to make sure to use them more. They're very good early tier archers. They are surpassed, however, of course, by Gondor archers, who have a 5 melee attack, so 1 less, but a better ranged damage, and a worse charge, actually. So they're a worse melee unit than the Blackroot Vale, but they're a better archer unit. They also have 14 defense instead of 9, and their accuracy range of meters is 24 missiles, 10 less than the Blackroot Vale, but the same accuracy. So overall, they are the better unit, but the Blackroot Vale archers are ever so slightly better archers, but again, in melee, it's either way, because they have lower armor, and only 1 more melee attack, so... Gondor archers are a better choice, but they do cost 900. Now, if you don't wish to get Gondor archers, you can get Gondor's only other hide anywhere unit, the Ithilien Rangers, who are, of course, human rangers. So they get a 6 missile. Their melee is 7, which is the best of all of these. As you might expect, they're a better version of Gondor archers. except they have slightly worse defense. So they have much lower armor than Gondor archers, but they have a higher defense skill to offset that partially. But their Ithilien Rangers are much better archers, but they are ever so slightly hindered in combat by a lower defense. We're on the wrong one. They have, as all human rangers do, 32 missiles, 220 meter range, and very high accuracy. So they are good rangers. Very good rangers, in fact. Always train rangers whenever you can. If it's got ranger in the name, train it, because it's going to be bloody good. And finally then, the highest tier unit you can get is only available in Osgiliath, and these are the Osgiliath veterans.
Ready for battle.
These are a really cool unit because they have an 8 melee attack. They can use sharpened stakes. You're the only unit for Gondor that can. A 6 missile attack, the same as the Rangers, with a 4 charge, but a 20 defense. So excellent soldiers when they've finished firing arrows. They only come from Osgiliath and Minas Tirith. Their morale is only good, though. So it's not elite level morale, but it's elite level stats otherwise. They have slightly less range and missiles and accuracy than the Rangers, but they're still excellent stats in terms of missiles, range and accuracy. So a really good all-round unit. And they, of course, will last much longer in battle than Ithilien Rangers because there are A, more of them, and B, they have much better melee stats. They also get a cool upgrade, which I'll show you in a moment. So then we come over to cavalry, which is Gondor's biggest weakness and the point where they often falter. Because you've only got Gondor Cavalry Militia at the start. 3 attack, 5 charge, 10 defense. Those are very poor cavalry stats. Secondary attack is only 6. So they're really poor cavalry stats. That 3 attack and 5 charge, that's your initial attack. That's abysmal. They are really only used for running down enemy units or breaking enemy units. They're not actually going to kill enemy units, but they will certainly break their morale and capture them, and ain't going to kill them. So do be careful when using cavalry militia. But when you jump up, you then get a unit that actually can do something, the Gondor Cavalry, who now ride these wonderful barded horses that the generals used to ride, and it was a shame to get rid of them completely, so we gave them to the Gondor Cavalry. They have a 6 attack, so still not very good, even though this is a mainstream unit. 11 charge, which is much better. So they have a nice charge, but it could be so much better. The defense is only 13 as well, so combine the fact that horses are easy to kill in melee with the fact they have a low defense anyway, means they're really not that great. Their secondary attack is 8, though. I mean, they are average in almost every respect of the word. They are average cavalry. They're not going to win awards, but they're also not going to let you down, per se. But just really don't rely on them to do excellent things. The Pinnithgelling Cavalry, however, do buck the trend a bit and give you a bit more strength. Their attack is 7, but their charge is less. Only 10. But their defense is 15, so at least their defense holds up a bit better. Their secondary attack is 9 rather than 8, which is also quite good. But again, they're poor morale stats for a unit of this kind of tier. Because this is verging on kind of creeping towards the upper tier. But they're only available in Seralond and as mercenaries, so they'll be much harder to recruit. But again, they look quite cool, and they're Gondorians in green armour, which is quite nice. Because, of course, Pinnithgelling means green hills. And so they are green to match their heraldry. And they look cool. They are very good in the early game, that should be stated. Pinnithgelling Cavalry are excellent early game. Really swiftly outclassed by other nations like Dol Amroth, Rohan, Khand, Harad, who all have excellent late game elites. Even Mordor has black Numenorians on horse, who are excellent late elite units. So in terms of cavalry, Gondor start okay and swiftly fall off, and it's pretty much their only weakness. They've got quite a nice assortment of archers, but then remember, if we were to take out of this archer line the units that can't be trained everywhere, they suddenly only have 2 archers. And this is a theme that's quite common with Gondor, is that a lot of their really best units are all AOR, and their mainstream units are decidedly average. So do bear that in mind, watch out for that, bear out for that. So then, some upgrades. I haven't got the other units of these two for you to compare them with, but if you just flick between the 2 points of the video, these are the Lammerden Clansmen upgraded. They get chainmail on their left shoulder, and they get a pauldron of steel on their left shoulder as well. So they do get a nice little visual upgrade, but it's not a huge change. Similarly, Amphalas pikemen just go from leather to chainmail, and also steel pauldrons where possible, or metal pauldrons where possible. Again, a minor visual change, but a noticeable one when they're standing side by side, but it's nowhere near the level of, for example, the change from tabards to full plate, which the Lasarnak Axemen have. They're considerably more armoured on the right. They pauldrons and plate. But then we do have some units that you can compare. Gondor Archers, this is what they look like fully upgraded compared to their pre-upgraded form. Again, taking the look of the 3rd Age units and then upgrading to look like Taroem's Gondorians. They have cool swords and bows as well. They just look good. These are Gondor Archer Militia. So whereas the main militia, the foot militia, gets the chainmail and a few extra Gondorian tabards, the Archer Militia only get a bit of chainmail, and instead they kind of jump up to wearing just proper tabards. If you put them side by side, the lower tier one just has these kind of like leather. Some of them don't even have leather. They're just generally wearing clothes. So they upgrade to just actually having full armor across the board. And is this Lamela? I'm not really sure. But they just have a nice upgrade there. We also have, as I said, the Osgiliath veterans, who are easily chasing Lasarnak and Minas Ithil as my 3rd favourite unit for Gondor, because they look so good when they upgrade. They get the full Gondorian plate, but they keep the like elite skirts that the, if for want of a better word, I'm sure there is a real word, but they keep the like elite bottom half, which is cool. And they have the cool shield on their back. They just look good. They just look really good. Because the archers don't have the shield on their back, and that helps distinguish the two. And finally, I also added the Pinnith-Gelling Cavalry, because almost everything about Gondor has a visual upgrade, because they are everyone's favourite faction. And their upgrade is, again, a nice simple one that just shows they've been upgraded without going too far. They get pauldrons, and that's it. So that is Gondor. Bloody lengthy, but there we are, done and dusted. Let's pop them all into a group, give them all to the AI, and turn all that off. And let's start this one. I'm on the wrong one. There we are. Now, this one is incredibly easy as to guess who is next, because there's 2 units over there that have given it away immediately, so we won't even bother. It is, of course, Harad. Harad are coming up next. Now, Harad has had a bit of love in version 2.2, actually, and they are a nation that has an identity now, and that's cool. And one of those such changes is present on the field right before you there, with 2 versions of Trollmen. Although that is actually just a visual upgrade for Trollmen, but they do get 2 Trollmen units. Oh, there they are, the hunters running in through the back. We took from Reforged the Black Snake Guard for the bodyguard, so the bodyguards stand out from the elite cavalry, which is cool. They've still got camels, of course, and they've got actual camels. And I say that, of course, because wargs technically are camels in the game, and that always has to be factored in by anyone who wishes to play. Remember that wargs are camels. And of course they have Mumak. Mumakil is the plural, Mumak the singular, who are predominantly archers really. They spend a long time firing their arrows before they tend to charge in, but their hand can be forced by foolish cavalry units that charge into them, and they just utterly crush them. Absolutely shredding those units there. If used properly, they are hands down the best unit in this entire game. Fight me. However, the AI has a real tendency to not know what to do with them and get them killed easily. And if you know what to do against them, they can be countered quite proficiently. They suffer one massive setback, of course, from Med 2, in that they have a huge hitbox. And so Javelin units will utterly wreck them. Archers do very well against them, and Ballistae might as well be renamed as Mumakil Killers, because they are so good at that. There's the famous Southron pikeman walking backwards and forwards, not knowing what to do with itself in the middle there, as pikemen often do when the AI owns them. Some Muhad tribesmen over here. And standing at the back, of course, the catapult. So there we are, that's the Gondor overview, and we're quite thematically going on to one of their enemies for the next one. I should also state, totally coming away from the more future aspects of the overviews and looking at just right now. This video is recorded on the 30th of August, and in this week's rotations there will not be a 4th video. I am afraid going to be away this Friday and Saturday, and also very busy for the Sunday, and so there will only be 3. There won't be a Lothlorien video this week if you're holding out for one. But otherwise, that's all for now, and until we speak again, dear friends, Navar na den Pedimad Melonin, and farewell.